The thrill of the underground racing scene was my sanctuary, a world where the roar of engines and the glow of headlights were my comfort. Every Friday night, we'd gather in an abandoned industrial parking lot, the only sound being the distant hum of the city and the occasional rev of an engine. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline, rubber, and adrenaline. It was a place where I could escape the mundane routine of everyday life and feel truly alive. On this particular Friday, the chill of the night air was biting, but the excitement of the crowd was palpable. Among the sea of cars, one stood out, an old, matte black Mustang that seemed to absorb the light around it. Its engine growled like a beast, its sound waves vibrating through the air, making my chest thump in time. No one seemed to know who owned the car, but its presence was undeniable. As the racing started, the Mustang dominated, leaving everyone in its dust. Its speed was mesmerizing, its tires screeching as it took the corners with precision. Curious, I approached the driver during a break in the racing. The man behind the wheel was a figure of mystery, his skin pale and clammy, his eyes sunken as if they'd seen the depths of hell. He introduced himself as Victor, his voice low and gravelly, sending shivers down my spine. He challenged me to a race, his eyes glinting with a fierce competitiveness. I accepted, my heart racing with anticipation. We sped down a secluded back road, the only sound being the roar of our engines and the rush of the wind. The Mustang was ahead of me the entire time, its taillights glowing like embers in the darkness. I pushed my car to its limits, but Victor's driving was flawless, his car hugging the road like it was an extension of his body. Suddenly, the Mustang vanished. I slammed on the brakes, my heart in my throat, and that's when I saw it. A mangled wreck, twisted metal and shattered glass, the remains of a car that looked uncannily like Victor's Mustang. I was shaken, my mind reeling with questions. What had just happened? Where had Victor gone? I returned to the parking lot. My story met with silence. The crowd seemed to be avoiding me, their eyes cast downward. An older enthusiast, a grizzled veteran of the racing scene, pulled me aside and whispered, "Victor died in a crash last year, racing on this very road. His car always returns to challenge drivers on dark nights, seeking a new victim to join him in the afterlife." I was frozen in horror, my blood running cold. The truth was too much to bear. From that day on, I stopped racing, the thrill of the underground scene replaced by a sense of dread. But every now and then, I hear the Mustang's growl in the distance, a chilling reminder of the risks we take and the consequences that await us. The sound sends shivers down my spine, a haunting echo of a tragedy that refuses to rest. The remote spot we chose for our car meet was a deserted stretch of road, nestled near an old, abandoned tunnel that loomed like a specter in the darkness. The tunnel's entrance was a gaping mouth, a void that seemed to swallow the light around it. I had heard the rumors, whispers of cars entering the tunnel and never coming out, but as car enthusiasts, we were drawn to the thrill of the unknown. The tunnel seemed perfect for a late-night drag race, its isolation and eerie atmosphere only adding to the excitement. As I stood near the entrance, the sound of revving engines and the murmur of the crowd created a sense of anticipation. When my turn came, my friend Leo and I decided to race, our cars roaring to life as we sped into the tunnel. The sound of our engines echoed eerily off the walls, the noise bouncing back and forth like a living thing. Midway through the tunnel, I noticed something strange. Leo's headlights, once a steady presence in my rearview mirror, were gone. I slammed on the brakes, my heart racing with a growing sense of unease. As I stepped out of the car, the tunnel seemed to stretch on forever in both directions, the darkness swallowing me whole. I called out to Leo, but my voice was swallowed by the void. Panic set in as I realized I was alone, the only sound the creaking of the old tunnel and the faint hum of my car's engine. And then, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My car's clock had stopped. The digits were frozen, a permanent reminder that time had stood still. It was then that I heard it, a soft, mournful sobbing echoing through the tunnel like a lost soul. The sound sent shivers down my spine, and I turned back toward the entrance, my heart pounding in my chest. But as I walked, the tunnel seemed to shift and twist. the darkness playing tricks on my mind. I stumbled upon another car, a rusted, abandoned shell that seemed to have been left to rot. Its headlights flickered dimly, casting an eerie glow over the scene. And then I saw him. Leo, sitting in the driver's seat, his hands clutching the wheel, his face frozen in a silent scream. The sight was like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless and disbelieving. I tried to approach him, but my legs felt like lead, my mind reeling with horror. The sobbing grew louder, more intense, and I felt myself being pulled toward the sound. And then everything went black. The next thing I knew, I was outside the tunnel, my car idling, the clock ticking again. Leo's car was gone, and when I stumbled back to the meet, no one believed me when I told them what happened. They thought I was crazy, that the stress of the race had gotten to me. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. To this day, I avoid tunnels, haunted by the memory of that sobbing echo and the image of Leo's frozen face, forever trapped in that abandoned car. Every car meet has its showstopper, the one vehicle that draws everyone's attention like a magnet. This time, it was a sleek, obsidian-black Supra that seemed to absorb the light around it, its glossy paint job reflecting the surroundings like a dark mirror. The owner, a quiet guy named Miles, seemed normal enough, but there was something off about the car, something that didn't quite add up. I noticed it when I rode shotgun with him to grab some snacks, the silence between us punctuated only by the soft hum of the engine and the occasional glance in the rearview mirror. That's when I saw it, a dark figure like a shadow shifting in the back seat. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, but as we stopped at red lights, I caught glimpses of the figure again and again. It was always there, lurking just out of sight, its presence making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. "Do you see that?" I asked nervously, trying to keep my voice steady. Miles shrugged, his expression nonchalant, but his eyes seemed to flicker with a hint of warning. "The car has quirks," he said. "Don't think too much about it." I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia, but as we drove back to the meet, the temperature in the car dropped sharply, the air growing colder and damper. The shadow in the back seat grew more distinct, its presence more pronounced. I could feel its eyes on me, boring into my skin like cold, dark drills. I begged Miles to pull over, but he gripped the wheel tighter, his knuckles white with tension. "It feeds on fear," he said flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. "Ignore it, and it leaves you alone." I didn't know what to make of his words, but I knew I had to get out of the car, to escape the oppressive atmosphere that was suffocating me. I bolted out of the car as soon as we stopped, gasping in the cool night air like a drowning man. But even as I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the sensation that the shadow in the back seat was still with me, waiting for its next victim. Weeks later, I heard the news. Miles had crashed during a solo run, his Supra totaled beyond recognition. Witnesses claimed the car was empty when they found it, but the police report mentioned faint handprints on the inside of the car's windows, too many to belong to just one person. It was as if the shadow had been waiting patiently for its next meal. Now, whenever I see a car parked with no one inside, I glance at the back seat, half expecting to see that shadow waiting for its next victim. The memory of that night haunts me still, the feeling of being watched, the presence of something malevolent lurking just out of sight. I know it sounds crazy, but I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. The Supra may be gone, but the shadow remains, waiting for its next opportunity to strike, to feed on the fear of its next victim. And I know that I'll never look at a car the same way again, never assume that the empty seats are truly empty. The darkness is always there, waiting, and I'll never be able to shake the feeling that I'm being watched. Thank you for watching this chilling story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying tales. Explore other genres of horror and scary stories on this channel. There's something to keep every horror fan awake at night. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload.